Today, for our Mental Health Awareness Week, we have another special guest. Today is Michelle Allen, the co-founder of Monkey's House, which is a dog hospice and sanctuary. You also were a human nurse, so you have a lot of medical background in your training as well before founding Monkey's House. But thank you so much for joining us today, Michelle.
Thank you, Gwen. I appreciate being here.
And today we wanted to talk about cognitive dysfunction because that is a mental health topic that plagues quite a few cats and dogs. So today will be in the context of both cats and dogs, but I know that your hospice and sanctuary is just dogs. But we really want to explain a little bit about what cognitive dysfunction is and a lot of the practical ways that you can make your pet's life even better, especially as they struggle with something like this. So if you could start out and just for those that maybe are newer and not familiar, what is Monkey's House and how did you get started down this journey of natural pet care?
I started actually because I had my own dog who had cancer, and I was feeding kibble at the time. I would dump a few scoops out. They would eat. They would poop. My day was set. And my dog got cancer. I started looking into feeding her better, into cooking. Couldn't find answers. I was very frustrated. But in feeding even wrong, she lived quite long. And in that search for knowledge, I one day ended up at one of your mom's seminars way back in the early days. And she really resonated with everything that I was thinking of. And she was able to answer my questions lightning fast, simply because she also had, I think at the time, 13 or 14 dogs that she was feeding this way. And it's things that I could tell you as a conventionally trained nurse that aren't going to improve. Once I switched to a well-balanced, fresh diet for all of my dogs, things that there's no way they could improve were improving. It was fun to watch my old dogs kind of turn into young dogs, watch them misbehave, to run on our walks, to have a toy. It really made a big impact on their life. And it was easy to see the impact because they were older dogs and they did have arthritis and a lot of itises to go along with that. So it was easy to see the improvements.
At Monkey's House, you take on a lot of the dogs that are either at end of life or they have some type of terminal diagnosis. Is that correct? So
they have to have multiple diagnoses. I used to worry when I would pull a dog from the shelter, Dr. Morgan would say, they just have a stage 4 heart murmur and a urinary tract infection. You might have to take this one back. And so I would say, well, I'm not doing that. But the next one I would make sure was also blind and had a lot more wrong. So we're looking for dogs that are difficult to manage in the average household and that rescues are not wanting to take on because they can certainly adopt out more healthy dogs at a faster rate.
Yeah, definitely. And so right before this, I was looking up some statistics and studies have shown that up to 50% of cats over the age of 15 and 68% of dogs over the age of 15 are going to suffer from some type of cognitive dysfunction. And people don't realize as our pets become older, there are a lot more challenges that are different from having a younger pet. And so when you're bringing these dogs in, they have multiple comorbidities. They may also have some cognitive dysfunction issues. Can you talk a little bit about how that impacts living with them? Some of the challenges that you have faced when it comes to managing pets with cognitive dysfunction.
Absolutely. And first, I want to say, if anyone watching has a dog or a cat that has cognitive dysfunction, I'm very sorry. It's very hard because their outside shell is still your very best friend. They look exactly the same. But inside, they're confused. They don't necessarily eat. They may be having accidents in the house. They may be barking in the middle of the night, all night long. They may have all kinds of anxiety. And it's very, very hard to process those feelings when come morning they're fine or come morning they're just not as bad. and they still look exactly like the dog that you have a picture of 2 years ago on vacation someplace neat. It's very tough. But we manage them primarily with diet and exercise and with supplements that help the brain. So it was funny in all of the 90s, everything was low fat. You were supposed to have margarine, no butter, that was no fat was the fad. And now we have all these people with early onset Alzheimer's, early onset dementia. It's a bad deal. And so we've learned that, especially in the pet space, I've learned that fats feed the brain. So our dogs with cognitive issues, well, first off, all of our dogs are on a very healthy omega-3 fatty acid. Then our dogs that are struggling with cognitive issues, we have them on cocoa therapy, their triplex MCT oil. And I usually use that in the morning for their brain. And then I use the virgin coconut oil in the afternoon or dinner for the rest of the amazing things that coconut oil does for them. So I try to hit them with a really good healthy brain food. And what's nice about that is I don't have to worry about pancreatitis. I don't have to worry about the toxins that are fat. Our fat stores toxins. And so I'm not feeding them fat from a chicken. I'm feeding them fat from something that was sourced well. So I'm not filling them with extra things that are going to make their life more difficult. My very first thing I do is take them to the vet and make sure that they haven't gone deaf, gone blind, have a molar that's about to pop out the top of their eye, have horrible arthritis that I'm not aware of. I need to rule out everything. And sometimes I mess around with their meds. Now, this is under advisement of my vet, but for us, our main function is quality of life and as pain-free as possible. And so sometimes when supplemental stuff doesn't work well enough, I need to turn to drugs. And sometimes those drugs have side effects that you don't realize they're experiencing until you take them off. So if I take them off and those issues dissipate, then I have to find another way to manage the pain.
And I think that is a really great point that the cognitive dysfunction in general can be a diagnosis of elimination, because there are many other things, whether it's just straight behavioral issues, trauma, there's a vitamin or mineral deficiency. Dr. Ava Frick talked a lot about that. There are some medical reasons or a drug side effect where they could be having some of these similar symptoms of dysregulated sleep, having accidents in the house, getting disoriented, confused. So that's a really great point. I hope everybody listening today takes away is that, we're going to talk today about a lot of things that you can use, whether it's diet, exercise, enrichment, things like that, but not forgetting to skip that step of going to the veterinarian and checking out some of their other comorbidities and how they may be impacting their cognitive function, because a lot of these things are interlinked or misdiagnosed when they come together in packages. So that's a really great point.
And I also want to add in there UTIs, urinary tract infections. When I was younger, it just meant that it hurt to pee. And now, when you see dogs with multiple comorbidities, dogs with DM who still have good use of their front legs may get a UTI and have no use of the front leg all of a sudden. They can cause tremendous disruption in their quality of life. And it's just a urinary tract infection. So it's something that you always want to include when you're worried about what's going on if you've noticed a change.
Absolutely.
So again, I use a species appropriate diet. If they're seeming really stressed, if they're panting, if they're doing all kinds of that, I will do a lot of TCVM food therapy, but basically their main food will be rabbit. That decreases the heating. It helps them stay cooler, and it just kind of tones their energy down a teeny bit. So, if you have an agility dog that's healthy, you're going to feed them something that's going to be hot and give them energy and make them run, something, that's like deer or lamb. And if you have a dog who has CCD, you don't want them to have extra energy. You want to kind of dial that back. I do use CBD oil. And I use specifically, CBD Dog Health. I use their Calm. I also use their Ease. The panting in a healthy dog they can just be hot. They can be anxious, or they can be painful. And it's hard to rule that out if you don't know of anything specific that's causing all of that. So I will add to the Calm, I'll add Ease. They make a product called Ease, which helps with pain. I also use medicinal mushrooms, and the same company actually makes a great thing called Clarity. And, if they're up all night, so the Clarity is twice a day, every day, no matter what. But if they're up all night, if they're keeping the whole house up, then I'll give more CBD. I'll mess with combinations to try and see if there's anything more I can do to get them comfortable. I'll try a thunder shirt. A lot of times I try engagement with them. So you think your dog is barking at nothing. How are you going to engage with them? And even when their eyes don't work and their ears don't work, their nose still works. And I'm not saying feed your dogs hot dogs, but I am saying that high value treats, even if it's freeze-dried tripe, if it's something that can just get them to do and being interacted with, will very often settle them down. So I'll try different things to settle them down. I'll also try car rides. I will walk them extra, and even, you don't have to walk an old dog 5 miles to tire them out. Sometimes a trip to the mailbox or a trip halfway to the mailbox will help. But exercise in and of itself, I find, does an amazing job at slowing the progress of CCD. So if I have a dog that's starting to not eat well and has blank stares and doesn't always recognize me, but I'm walking towards the leash and he gets that look like the leash means something, you better believe I drop everything I'm doing and we go out, even if it's just for 200 feet. I want to engage him on his terms any chance I can.
And that's an interesting point, because I know for a lot of cases of cognitive dysfunction, they'll recommend a routine and trying to keep that routine so that way the pets, even if they are a bit disoriented or their sense of time is really off, at least with the routine, they kind of know what comes next and get into that one thing after the other. Do you find that a routine is helpful? Do you find that, it's more helpful to really just read your dog or cat and what they may need day to day? What has really been helpful for your pets?
So because I have so many dogs, our routine is kind of written in stone. So I can't say that I use routine as a tool. And sometimes that routine is disrupted by someone having a seizure or there being an emergency, but it means another volunteer will pick up with the routine. So our routine kind of stays the same. It's more reading the individual dog. If I'm going to go upstairs and go to bed and I'm leaving them downstairs, I do that for larger dogs that aren't safe or aren't comfortable upstairs. I wear my clothes during the day, and then my clothes at night go in beds of dogs that are blind, of dogs that have cognitive issues. I had a blind dog who had a million things wrong, and I would always wake up in the morning and find her sleeping on my shoes. So that was really powerful to me. I started dispersing. So then that night they get switched out. So I do laundry. But I do leave things around that are familiar and comforting to them so that if they have the ability or they're at a level where they're able to sense it, that it is good for them. The one thing that's so important and is so hard when you're sleep deprived and it's the fifth night and you haven't slept and you're nauseous and you have no patience and your husband says, if you don't put the dog in the garage, I'm leaving you. If you can't function at work,
right.
The dog, they manage to sense that you're stressed. They feed right off it. They smell it in your sweat. They seem to just stress it over to smell that everywhere. If you can't find a way to relieve that, your dog's life is kind of already over. So what I can say is go in your car and scream, and then start fresh, and remember that this is your best friend and that you're trying hard to restore some normalcy to them or provide them for comfort in this final chapter of their life. It's important. Your dog wouldn't want to ruin your life, wouldn't want you to be fired, wouldn't want you to go so many nights without sleep. And yet, unfortunately, it is part of the job. And there's not one product that you're going to, I can name, if you say name 10 products, I can name 10 products. You can't just try one and that's going to do it. Don't think you're going to sleep tonight if you start this. It's a trial and error. It's if I say, 1 teaspoon for 10 pounds, that doesn't mean that's going to work for your dog. You have to, keep trying and keep experimenting and sometimes I act like, in my mind, like I'm trying not to be frustrated with someone running the hotel, and I want to speak to the night manager, and apparently there is no night manager, and you have to keep your cool about you. And sometimes that's actually the conversation I'll have with the dogs is, you can complain that there's only health food in this house in the morning when the person in charge comes on. And it helps keep my emotions in check. And it helps keep it so that if they have a moment of clarity, they say, oh, Mom's going to make blueberry pancakes in the morning. Right. It just helps them to stay 1 or 2 levels down from where they are.
Yeah, and it's important to remember for a lot of these pets, especially the senior pets that are experiencing this decline, they may be acting abnormally, but they're definitely not doing it on purpose or to be bad. If they're having accidents in the house or they're keeping you up all night, it's so easy to get frustrated and sleep deprived and aggravated in that moment of just, why won't you sleep? But they really can't help it. They truly get disoriented, and they sometimes don't recognize people that they have known their whole lives. And it can be a really scary process for a lot of these pets. If you've ever met somebody that unfortunately suffered from some form of dementia, you can imagine it's kind of similar, where it's very disorienting. They feel lonely, confused. And so just reframing, as Michelle said, in your mind, the type of situation that you're dealing with. It's not your pet in their prime, or maybe the pet that you've known their whole life with you. They may be experiencing new challenges that you haven't seen before. And that's up to us as the pet parents to really do what we need to do to take care of ourselves so we can take care of our pets. And whether that's calling in some assistance if you can to come help you, or as Michelle said, there are some interventions that you can try and just keep stacking or rearranging things until you find something that works well for your household. On that note, for those that are maybe really struggling at nighttime, is there anything specific that you've done with those pets to try to help them sleep more comfortably through the night, or any type of exercise late in the day before they go to sleep, or are there any suggestions like that might be helpful?
So nighttime is tough, and the stuff I'll suggest works exactly like food for a dog that doesn't eat. It'll work great for 2 days and you think your problem is solved, and then all of a sudden it isn't, and you have to regroup. But one of the things is, just like us, blue light, Wi-Fi, things in the air, I'm not saying wrap them in tinfoil, but shut off your TV. If you can unplug your Wi-Fi, unplug your Wi-Fi. Things that may stimulate them or aggravate them on a different level, remove them from it. And they say people should stop 2 hours. They should get off of their iPad or their TV about 2 hours before they intend to sleep. I don't know how early you should do that for dogs, but I am aware when they're having sleeping issues, I make sure that I start getting that stuff turned off. And I'm unsure how much it impacts blind dogs, the blue light, but I do believe that it does impact blind dogs. I've asked, and no one seems to really know, but my 2 cents is that I do believe it does impact. As far as exercise is concerned, usually exercise is a stimulant and it makes them more excited. But if your dog is up, and generally it's rare that they're up and they're just looking cool and cute. Generally, they're up and they're agitated. If they're able to walk and can go for a little walk, that just gets rid of the chemicals that are causing, the agitation, and it kind of will help settle them. If they'll go for a car ride, sometimes I put on like really happy music, and I just kind of dance with them. Sometimes I put on slow dance music and I slow dance with them. I do things that will help my mind get to a place that I want their mind to get to. I do try the thunder shirt. For some dogs, it's a game changer. For other dogs, it doesn't do anything. There are other calming herbs available. But nights are tough. If they're panting and I can't seem to settle that down, I do put a fan right in front of their face. If for some reason they're hot or they're feeling like they're not getting enough air, that does trick the brain into thinking that they're getting more air, even though they actually aren't. And I try to have them be sleepless in a part of the house that does not disrupt my husband, who does have to go to work the next day. So that very often means I'm sleeping somewhere else.
Yeah, it's tough. And before we run out of time, I did want to leave people with just a few tools that they could have in their toolbox, or at least look into to see if it might be helpful. And so we had mentioned a high quality diet being the foundation, so that you always change your dogs to a more high quality diet when you rescue them. And you had mentioned also high quality omega-3 fatty acids, which are wonderful for cognitive function, and MCT oil. We use cocotherapy, but there's others out there. Is there anything else, and CBD, sorry, you mentioned CBD. Is there anything else you can think of in cases of cognitive dysfunction that you commonly will put your pets on, or you've seen possibly be
Yes,
helpful?
medicinal mushrooms. So Myco Dog makes one called Clarity. There's other companies, specifically Lion's Mane. It's a funky looking mushroom, but it's a neuroprotectant, and we're using it for all kinds of things, and the brain being one of them. I can't say that I give them 3 tablets of Lion's Mane and then they have a good night's sleep. I can't tell you that that's been my experience. It's just part of the routine that I add. And I don't hesitate to give them more. It's not going to cause a toxicity. It's just going to get, peed out. It's not going to cause an issue.
Right. And do you, for a lot of your pets, do you put any type of like antioxidants into their diets? Like we've talked about before how a lot of the bright colored fruits and vegetables are great for antioxidants, or we have CoQ10, SAMe, things like that. Are those things that you add to the toolbox, to your kind of your senior toolbox, or is that on a case by case?
No, that's in every dog. That's including my own personal young healthy dog. I feed all provide, and if you've ever seen their vegetables, they look nicer than my vegetables.
Yeah.
But I'm always, flipping a little bit of blueberries, just little bits of antioxidants. I also use ubiquinol. Sometimes I use CoQ10. I try to rotate around. So I'm big into that, but I do it for everybody. The dogs who have CCD, they are not going to be your best eaters. They are not going to say, geez, that red bell pepper smells delicious. I'll sit and give you the paw if you give me a piece of broccoli. Those are the dogs that make things a little bit tougher. And I did want to add one trick, which is that raw goat's milk is calorie dense, and it's pretty close to a complete diet. So if you look on the side and figure out how much your dog needs for their weight, if they're going through a phase of not eating, first off, I always contact my vet and make sure that their kidneys aren't acting up. There's a lot of metabolic reasons why they will fast themselves. But honestly, I'll calculate how many calories they need, and if I can get that in goat's milk down the hatch, I feel like the pressure's off. I've done my job. They're eating. And we always want dogs to eat as well and as balanced as possible. But desperate times, desperate measures. If all of their eating is your dinner from last night and you don't eat as well as your dogs, they're still eating. So you just have to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. And I did really like what you said earlier, how you don't expect any one of these things to be a miracle night's sleep. It's really setting a solid foundation nutritionally and addressing any concerns medically with the veterinarian, and then adding some things on top of that to really try to ease any type of anxiety, discomfort, symptoms that they're experiencing. But it is a tough decline. And I mean, ultimately, you guys, your mission is to give them the best end of life care possible. And you really focus on the quality of life, not just trying to, drag them through the mud for forever. And so,
No longevity is worth it.
right. Yeah, and so I highly encourage anybody, if you have not or do not follow Monkey's House Dog Sanctuary, please do, because they take them to the beach, they take them on field trips. There's all sorts of really, really fun ideas of things you can do with your pet, even if they are terminally ill or declining. That doesn't mean the end of fun times is here. So thank you so much, Michelle, for all of your work with your amazing dogs, and also for your education today. I think there's a lot of things that people can take home to do with their pet that may have cognitive decline. Is there anything that we missed that you feel like anybody should really think about when they have a pet with
Actually,
cognitive
just
dysfunction?
now when you said I take the dogs to the beach, I take the dogs everywhere. I take them everywhere. And you can say, in the 15 years I've had my dog, they've never left my house. Well, the dogs that come to us in their 15th year, very late in life. I don't know if they've been to the car. I don't know if they've been in the beach, but they're going. I make sure that it's as safe as possible, that I have enough help, that I can monitor anything that may go wrong. But, they say it's never too late to teach an old dog a new trick. And if they're having fun, let them have fun, in a new environment. I think, even because you've never taken your dog to a friend's house, if your friend is on board, take your dog to a friend's house, sit on the floor and have dinner, do things that, break some rules and have some fun.
Yeah. I love that so much. And you actually collaborated with my mom, Dr. Judy Morgan, to put together a very in-depth course on hospice and palliative care for dogs. So cognitive dysfunction is just one of the topics that you guys cover in that course. There's a lot more on this topic and a dozen other topics. So anybody that's struggling with their pet, or maybe they work with pets that need hospice and palliative care at some point in their life, we have two experts that put together a wonderful, wonderful course on Dr. Judy U. So we'll make sure to put the link to that in the comments. And we also will put any additional resources from Michelle there too. So make sure you check those out.
Thank you, Gwen.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I can't wait to talk to you again.
Me either. And thanks for filling in for your mom. It's great to see a small family business that pulls together. You know what I mean? You're there for your mom, for Nanny, and let's face it, your job is not easy on a regular day.
Thank you.
Kudos to you for doing this.
Thank you. And I'm feeling the love because our family has been under some stress lately. And Judy said that she appreciated me the other day. So I was like, you know what? I'm feeling the love. Everybody's working together for the common cause. And we will see you at the International Naturally Healthy Pets Experience in October.
I would not miss it. If I have to walk to Florida, I'm getting there.
Heck yeah. All right, so we'll all party in Orlando, Florida, October 12th and 13th for the experience. We can't wait to see you there. And you have books as well, which I forgot to mention, but we'll make sure to put those book links in the description as well, for Where Dogs Go to Live. What is the second one, the newer
Where
one?
Dogs Go to Live is really a lot about our hospice work. And then Life as a Dog Bone is kind of a coffee table book. It's very nice pictures of our dogs with inspiring quotes. And then my husband's last one, Leashes in Heaven, is it's a fiction loosely about our life and our dogs that have been with us. So if you follow us and know our dogs, you'll recognize it. But it's a very, very good book to read.
Love that. Love that. Yeah, we'll make sure to link all of those as well for anybody interested in learning more. All right. Thank you so much.
Great. Have a wonderful day.
Oh, you too.